What's going on YouTube? Salos, back with another video. Still sober today. Tomorrow I got 5 months, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Today we're going to be talking about Crust, but before I get to that, let me just mention what we are listening to. Very notable album. This is Axe Grinder with Rise of the Serpent Man. Fucking one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely would be appreciated by metal fans. Really cool shit. Check that out. I'll talk about that later on in a different video. But Crust and D-Beat for me is I would contribute me getting into metal because I got into Crust. I was into bands like Black Flag and Black Sabbath and Minor Threat and shit like that. And then I discovered bands like Amoebics, Axe Grinder, Nausea, the more metallic, atmospheric Crust bands. And in the 80s and 90s, the metal and D-Beat scene were more intertwined. Yeah, more people listened to both genres at the same time. And even each scene kind of influenced each other. A lot of the Crust bands listened to bands like Merciful Fate, Celtic Frost, Hellhammer, Bathory. All the early albums that got me into black metal. Especially Bathory and Hellhammer, probably being the most notable ones for myself. But now I feel like the scenes are more segregated, if that makes sense. People have just a very specific kind of music that they listen to, and I feel like a lot of people are really missing out on really good music that really goes hand in hand with another style of music. Even, I don't know if it's sort of, I wouldn't say it's unacceptable because people can like what they like, but I just feel like people really don't have the knowledge to check this shit out anymore. I feel like they have a different perspective of what D-Beat and what Crust is. And I could be projecting all these specific beliefs onto people, but that's just the way I feel. I meet a lot of metal fans who have never listened to Amoebics, never listened to Nausea, never heard of most of the bands that I would say go hand in hand with metal. They're just as extreme, just as heavy, just as dark and brooding. And I feel like in the modern age a lot of people are missing out. Now there are exceptions to this philosophy, I guess I'm spewing out. The most notable exception would have to be Nell's Unsilent Death. This has gotten a lot of, I wouldn't say publicity, but this has gotten a lot of talk and has sort of gained a specific aura around this release. And this is definitely worth all the praise that it is getting. But it's just crazy to me how people know of a band like Nell's and not of the classic bands that a band like Nell's are listening to when they play this style of music. Now Nell's you could consider them power violence, I guess. There's a definite sludge and D-Beat influence on this. Even a little grindcore in there. But that's the cover. I know this has been talked about a bunch of times. It's like a Hellhammer cover. You got him wearing a blast shirt and a bastard shirt. Now this is my personal favorite Nell's release. I enjoy all, I think there's 3 of them now. No lyric sheet. But this is my personal favorite one. I enjoy them all, like I said. Southern Lord release, 2010. Definitely cool. I really dig their new album too. If you haven't heard Nell's, which I'm surprised if you haven't, check this shit out. And now, if you're in a band like Nell's, I would recommend every single band that I'm going to show today. We're starting off with maybe one of my favorite bands from the UK from the late 80s, DB scene. This is Doom with Police Baxter. This came out in 1989. Only 5 tracks. They're definitely all really killer. A band like Circles is really reminiscent of what Power Violence would become. Definitely very chaotic and grinding. The drums on this are pretty thrashing, so it's not as metallic as other bands of its time, but there's a metal influence on it. You can tell that they're listening to bands like Pestilence or Possessed and Celtic Frost or Hellhammer. A Profane Existence, if I didn't mention that already. Now maybe punk people won't like me saying this, but I kind of think like Crust is like the black metal to the metal scene, kind of. Definitely very minimalistic, raw, dark. So an insert. Now I'm not sure if this is an official release, an original release, but just a paper. I don't mind releases like this, especially for shit like this. Very minimalistic, like I said. And then you have the Profane Existence. Like I said, if you know if this is an original or not, I'm not really sure. Definitely let me know. Even the vocals on that are pretty harsh and guttural. Maybe drunken guttural, but it kind of has a death metal aesthetic to it, I would say. Next up, this is probably maybe not my favorite, but one of my favorite albums of all time. This really brought the metal and crust scene together, and they all loved this album when it came out in 1990. This is a undeniable classic. Nausea with Extinction. If you know Crust, you know Nausea. Profane Existence. This is the 1990 copy. I believe there's only one repress of this. Now, the thing I could say about this release is really get a feeling of impending doom. They sort of adopted the atmosphere and aesthetic of bands like Amoebics and Axe Grinder, but added the more, I'd say, technological, apocalyptic sound to it. Like the first track, it's very long and brooding. It's a technological. Definitely one of my favorite songs. I really don't know what else to say about this, to be honest. But I didn't mention already, it's really metallic. The female vocals on it, it's probably my favorite female vocal performance ever, possibly. It's not like melodic by no means, but I just love the way her performance on it, so to speak. Now this is an album that I think everybody would love. I already showed that. I need to show the inserts. I think this is an album everyone can appreciate. Probably my, has a really cool label on it too. So you got Jesus on a cross, Profane Existence. If you had to check out anything on this list, if you didn't know any of them, definitely check this thing out. It also came with a poster. Almost forgot. You got the RoboCat Reaper. I had to get a copy that came with the poster. Next up, kind of a Nausea-like band. This is a modern band. This is Deadly Rain with Slave. Now, I know these guys have a full length. I believe this came out in 2013 or 2010. I guess a 3-year difference. But everything I said about that nausea release can be said about this. Now this is not as good as that by far, but if you're looking for mid-paced, good D-beat music, definitely check this out. No, I haven't listened to their full length, if I didn't say that already. This is the only thing I've listened to by them. And this gets a fair amount of play. Got a patch. This is part of the Profane Existence limited edition single series, I guess. And this comes on a nice cum colored vinyl. And you got the Profane Existence. Lots of Profane Existence in this one, huh? Fuck. I guess this next one's a Southern Lord. Now, this is probably one of my favorite raw punk bands from the last 5 years, I'd say. At least by far. I don't think I've loved anything that came out as much as I love this thing. This is Paranoid. This is their first release. I'm not sure how to say this album title, but you can read it right there. The cool thing about this cover too is if you see this right here, you will recognize it from the Lurker album. So if you can see, definitely cool. I actually just noticed that a few weeks ago. This gets a lot of play on my turntable. I really like picking out all these pictures. Swedish band, really influenced by the Japanese scene in the 1990s and the 1980s. And I say their sound is right on the money. Now you can tell they're Swedish by their guitar solos. All the lyrics are in Japanese. Really gothic picture right there. But as I was saying, you can tell that they're definitely Swedish from their melodic guitar solos, if that makes sense. And even at the end of the album, there's a dark ambient track that would fit perfectly. It'd fit perfectly on like a black metal album. Like either an atmospheric black metal album or a raw black metal album. But really fits perfect on this. This is, I don't know why I love dark ambient music so much, but these guys were able to hit it right on the money, as I said. Clear vinyl. Oh, fuck, man, I'm really obsessed about this band right now. Yeah, I don't need to say anything else about this. Definitely give this a listen. Fucking love this shit. Next up. So next up we have another Japanese worship band. But this is a band from Washington State. I think Olympia. This came out in 2013. I really don't know. This band only has a demo previous to this EP, 2-song EP, but I fucking love this. This is a Zatsune with Violent Noise Live. Now if you're into bands like Disclose, Gloom, more specifically I would compare it to a band like Confuse or Guy. Now, as I said about that Paranoid, this band hit right on the money when it comes to the violent party sound. And if you never did listen to Confuse, I covered them in my Japanese hardcore essential video. But if you think a band like Black Salice is raw, they're 30 years late to the party, to the violent party. But ever since I've listened to that stuff, I've been continuously searching, and I found this out in the wild. I've actually found the majority of these out at a local record store. a good buddy of mine, he owns a local record store, and he knows I obsess when it comes to Japanese hardcore, and I would contribute a lot of these albums, including that nails of him holding it behind the counter for me, and when I would come in, he would recommend them to me. And this is no exception. This is probably one of the coolest things I've ever bought out in the wild. So you got Distort Your Reality. But I can't reiterate how good this is. The lyric sheet. It's not in Japanese, but their sound is right on. Just the logo. Now this is just on black vinyl. Yeah, this is Zatsun, Z-A-T-S-U-O-N, with Violent Noise Live. Really fucking amazing shit. I've listened to this countless times, and I stand by how good this is. Next up, we got two more. This is a band, a Japanese hardcore band. I had to throw in at least one Japanese band. This is a Tramp Tip with The Defeat of Civilization. This is their most recent mini LP from 2013. Their album before that came out in 2002, so that's quite a bit of difference, but they've continuously put out albums in between that time span. Put out a split with like Disclose and Declone, and I believe Declone. A lot of cool bands, but I prefer a band like Gloom and Disclose over a band like Tramp Tip. But to be honest, you can only listen to the same albums so many times, at least for me. And lately I've been gravitating towards a band like Tramp Tip. Even though they've been around for almost 20 years now, their sound is still just as relentless, I would say. Now, for it being a mini LP, you got like almost 10 or 12 songs on this fucking thing. Now you got an insert, lyric sheet. You can see all those songs. Now this is just on black vinyl. I actually really dig this label. All the people in gas masks. Definitely check out Tramp Tip. Raw punk, like Septic Death, any shit like that. Definitely really cool. Next up, the last release I have to show today. I had to throw in one metal album, but this fits in perfectly with all this shit. I discovered this band when I was discovering all bands like this. This is Hellhammer with Blood Insanity. Now, if you guys haven't watched my channel before, you will know how big of a Hellhammer fan I am. I don't need to talk about the music. I'm still planning on doing a sort of Tom G. Warrior disc collection. Just showing all my Celtic Frost stuff off, my Hellhammer stuff off, and Triptychon. Yeah, it's going to be a long video. I have a lot of shit. It's kind of like, think of it like Craig's Leviathan video. I'll show that. It's a cool picture on the back. But if you're into metal, and if you haven't checked out any crust punk, you're into grind and raw black metal, and even crossover thrash, and I hate to say it, but even bands like Goat Moon really have a punk rock aesthetic. That's not crust at all, and it's definitely very far from the politics of these bands. But it just makes me sad that a lot of my compatriots in the black metal scene and the metal scene in general, they don't seem to appreciate I would say these are lost classics. I know a lot of the older people, a lot of my older friends would disagree with me now, but it is very rare I find people my own age that likes the same music that I do. So I just wanted to show you guys some of my personal favorites. Maybe these are, yeah, just some personal favorites. Some shit I've been listening to lately. So thank you guys for watching my video. You guys can like, subscribe, dislike, unsubscribe. Leave a comment. Leave a penis down below. I don't care. Fuck you.